Hello and welcome back to the On The Ball podcast. Today we're here to talk about something different for once other than rugby league and AFL, which I'm really excited about. I'm recording this on a Tuesday and we are right on the eve, well not the day before, but you know what I mean. Pretty much the eve of the Euro 2020, well what it's been called, but essentially the Euro 2021 championships in soccer or football, wherever you're based. And something about international football, I just absolutely love it. I'm a big fan of club soccer as well. I've been all over the Premier League. Haven't done much podcast content on it in the last 3 or 4 months when I've been really into it, just because I've been focusing on the AFL and NRL as an Australian, but soccer has definitely been one of my main focuses in terms of sport in the last couple of months. So yeah, I've been really enjoying it, and it's got me really excited for the Euro 2020. I think it's coming from a rugby league background where rep footy is so iconic and loved, more in particular state of origin, but also international. I think that's where my love for the Euros and the World Cup come from. It's just a bit of like a super team, really. I never really watched the internationals that closely during the season, so it's almost a bit of like an Avengers type thing. Like when you look at the Belgian team, all these stars come together from all these great club sides and play together for their nation. I just think it's really cool. And what we're going to be doing today, I have no idea how long this is going to take. I have no idea whether this will be in parts or whether it's just going to go up as one long episode, or it might not even be that long. What we're going to do is go through the 6 groups. We're going to look at their recent form, their last 10 games. We're going to look at who they've beaten, who they've lost to, how their attack and defence are going respectively, how they've gone in recent tournaments. We're also going to look at their key players statistically. I've done some statistical analysis over the big 5 leagues in Europe this year, and I'm going to look at each country's main players, and then obviously going to also look at who's had great seasons for their clubs based on achievements like making team of the seasons and stuff for their respective leagues. So we're going to, may as well start off, not waste too much time because I think it will be a long one, but starting in Group A, I think this could be one of the better groups. I think everyone's just saying Italy will waltz through in all this, and that all the attention is maybe on the group of death down in Group F, but I do think this is one of the more interesting groups, to be honest. We've got Italy. They're the number 1 seed, obviously. I think everyone would be expecting them to win it. They've had a pretty good run. Can't lie, the last 10 rounds of well, not rounds, but you know what I mean, their last 10 games. I'm also looking at last 10 competitive matches. I'm not counting friendlies because, a lot of managers try a lot of new things in friendlies, so I won't take that into account. So looking at their last 10, they've picked up 24 points. They've had a fairly easy schedule, it has to be said, especially compared to a lot of the other teams in their kind of threshold. But something that's been really impressive since Roberto Mancini has taken over, since the disappointment of missing out on the World Cup, has been their defence. They've obviously been scoring goals, winning a lot of games, but they've only conceded 3 goals in their last 10 games. And although they might not have played the greatest of offences or attacks, that's still really impressive. And out of all the teams in this competition, that is the least goals conceded in the last 10 matches. So they're definitely one of the most informed teams coming into the competition, and they're a really exciting team. They're not quite, as I mentioned, they're good defensively, which we think of when we think of Italian football, but they're not quite necessarily the stereotype of Italy. When I think of Italy, someone who springs to mind is Daniele De Rossi. With the greatest respect to him, he's like old, defensively minded, not necessarily the most thrilling player, but that's just what I think of when I think of Italian football, where now they've got this young crop of talent. The Serie A as a whole, which I think is reflected in this national team's rise in the last couple of years. Serie A has gone from probably the 4th best league in Europe to arguably the 2nd or 1st. It's really competitive. They've got 7 or 8 great teams, a lot of good managers, and this is producing a lot of good young talent. So they're going to be a really exciting team to watch. I love Roberto Mancini. He just seems like the coolest bloke. Like a lot of their players. Looking at their last 4 big tournament performances, that they obviously didn't qualify for 2018 World Cup, highly talked about. And it's fair to say they haven't quite been the Italy that we've come to expect. They made the quarterfinals in 2016 Euros and didn't get out of the group stage in 2014 World Cup. They were the runners-up in 2012 in the Euros, but that's a long time ago now. That's a completely different squad we're looking at. Their key players statistically, now this guy unfortunately is probably their biggest name, you'd have to say, and he is injured and he's likely to miss the whole group stage, but Marco Verratti is one of the best passers in European football, really been a mainstay at that PSG midfield for years and years, just screening that defence as a number 8, not necessarily a number 6, but yeah, he's a key cog to this midfield. Some people saying he shouldn't even be picked because they've got the likes of Nicolo Barella and Manuel Locatelli and Jorginho, who's just won a Champions League, all in great form on their own accounts. But for me, if Verratti's fit, he's got to be there. He has, I think he's about 7th in terms of passes into the final third in all of European. He's about 15th in most progressive passes. He's just an absolute jet, and even with the ball at his feet, he's about 12th or 13th in progressive dribbles. So he's really good at picking up the ball from halfway and moving it up forward and putting the rest of this Italian, at Clubland, the rest of his PSG team on the front foot, but here it will be for Italy. So for me, he's got to be there if he does find fitness, I guess you could say, for the knockout stages. But the other midfielders, as I mentioned before, Barella, really exciting player, probably one of the people are predicting to break out, you'd have to say. He's had a sensational season for Inter Milan. A lot of people think he's going to have a great tournament, playing in that, number 8 kind of role, that midfielder that likes to attack but also pitching in defence. But the other midfielder, Manuel Locatelli, similar to Verratti, just a sensational player, coming off a really good season, and he's actually above Verratti in most of the passing stats, and that's no joke, nothing to laugh at, because Verratti's in about the top 15 for most of the progressive passing standings in Big 5 leagues in Europe, and Locatelli is just around that top 10 mark. So yeah, he's another player that's going to be really exciting to watch. And then their key attacking weapon, you're probably thinking of Immobile or Belotti. They're two centerpieces, I guess you could say, as leading the line for them. But for me, it's still Insigne. This is probably one of his last major tournaments where he's at the peak of his powers, but he is still it's just such an important player. He's in the top 20 for scoring chances created, shot creation, sorry, not scoring, where he creates a shot for someone else for his club side. So that's a really, really important stat, I believe. And he's also up there in progressive dribbles. He's in the top 20 for that in Europe. And he's also in there for passes into the opposition box. So yeah, he just does it all really. I think he's going to be playing the left wing. Interesting to see who they play up forward. Immobile would be the pick for me, but Belotti has, I believe, started more of the friendlies than Immobile has. So that'll be interesting to see. Will be probably Immobile's last European tournament, you'd have to say. I think he's 31, 32, so I hope he gets a crack at it, because he is in sensational form and has been for years with Lazio. So I'd like to see him lead the line, but Belotti could also get the nod. Other players who had really good seasons, Domenico Berardi was really impressive once again for Sassuolo. They were right in and amongst the Europa League spots, and he is going to be fighting it out with Chiesa for that right wing spot to oppose Insigne on the left. So they've got some real big selection headaches, but that is something you certainly will not complain at if you are Roberto Mancini. Attacking in midfield, they're absolutely loaded. Their midfield's arguably one of the best in the world. Defensively, a little bit worried. They've got some aging players, Florenzi, Chiellini, Bonucci, still very reliant on those guys. And Donnarumma in the sticks, I believe he'll be playing in between the two posts after Buffon's retirement. So there are a few worries. I'm not 100% confident that Italy will be a true title contender, but we'll talk about how I think they're going to go in the group after I chat about the other three sides. Switzerland, and with the greatest respect, I'm probably going to be focusing on the big teams more than the smaller teams. So, I know if you're listening and you're a fan of one of the countries I don't touch on too much, I apologise for that, but I don't want to be here for days. Switzerland, they've picked up 18 points from their last 10 games. Had the hardest last 10 schedule, if you know what I mean, out of Group A. and they've been pretty good attacking wise. They've scored 19 goals in those 10 games, and they've only conceded 10. So that's a pretty good goal differential. And although they've played some of the bigger teams, they've also had some easy games that have maybe boosted that goal differential. So I don't think we can fall into that trap too much. They've been really consistent in international tournaments in both the World Cups and the Euros, making it out of their group on the last 3 occasions. So I think it's hard to argue that they might be able to do that again. Their key player, he's controversial at clubland. Obviously, Arsenal fans know him very well and Premier League fans alike. But that is Granit Xhaka, and although he gets a lot of stick for some of the errors he makes, he does love failing a back pass or slipping over or something like that. But he is a very good player. He's in the top 20 in the Big 5 European leagues for progressive passing, also in the top 10 along with Verratti and Locatelli, like I mentioned, from Italy, for passes into the final third. So he does like picking up the ball from his defenders and moving it forward, which is going to be important for a team like Switzerland that may find that hard to do against a good defence like Turkey or Italy. Other key players, Romeo Freuler, from the vice-captain of Atalanta. Obviously, Atalanta are a very well-known team now. Absolutely have been lining up the Serie A and European competitions in the last couple of seasons, and he's been key to that, the Swiss midfielder. And then Nico Elvedi is also one to watch. I think 24-year-old centre-back. Believe he applies his trade for Borussia Mönchengladbach, could be wrong with that. And then Seferovic will be leading the line. The Benfica striker made the Liga NOS team of the season, so he's obviously had a very good year with them as well. But Xhaka will be their key man, partnering Freuler in that midfield. It's going to be a very important job for those two. Not necessarily as star-studded as they maybe were 2 years ago, but they've still got the likes of Bril Embolo, Xherdan Shaqiri still kicking, so they're nothing to scoff at all. Moving into Turkey now, they're one of the teams that are being talked heavily about as a dark horse. And I listened to a podcast by the podcast Pure Football by these few Scottish lads. Definitely give that a listen if you haven't got my Scottish top on. But Turkey seems to be really highly rated in Turkish circles, and I don't know if the world quite necessarily shares those beliefs, but they are being predicted as a dark horse by a lot of teams. And I can't lie, their form doesn't necessarily suggest that. They were very good in the Euro qualifiers, but in the last 10 across all competitions, they've only picked up 60 points, and their draw hasn't necessarily been the toughest. And they've played some good sides, but they've also, similar to Switzerland, played some bad sides. They've scored 18, but they've been pretty leaky in defence, conceding 13, so they're just over the break-even point for goal difference. And in terms of big performances in Euro tournaments, we haven't seen much really since, I believe it was the 2002 World Cup where they made the semi-finals or something. Heard a lot of stories about that. Wasn't, I was 2 years old then or 1, but in the last 4 they haven't qualified for 3, and then in the 2016 Euros they didn't get out of the group stage. So not necessarily coming in with huge pedigree in recent tournaments, but they've got some really good informed players across Europe's top 5 leagues. Hakan Çalhanoğlu, probably the most well-known of those, really well-known set-piece taker, really dangerous from free kicks within 30 yards of the opposition goal, but he's a lot more than that. He is ranked 4th. I think he had the most key passes in Europe in total, but in terms of all my stats are per 90, by the way, if you were not wondering, and I've sourced them from Football Reference or FB Ref, so go check that out if you haven't. Great site. But Hakan Çalhanoğlu is 4th in key passes across Europe's top 5 leagues, so that is incredible, applying his trade for AC Milan. He's also in the top 10 for shot creating actions, so he's going to be creating a lot of chances for the attackers around him. And Burak Yilmaz is probably going to be leading the line. Not 100% sure with that, but he I believe he was huge in Lille's. I don't know how many goals he scored or anything, but he was big in Lille's Ligue 1. Surprising title, I guess. I can't think of a better word, but yeah, no, shocking really. No one thought that was going to happen, and he was a big reason for that, leading the line for them. He didn't make the league team of the season, so he's obviously had a very good year. But although he's in attack, and that's a good thing, their stars are in the midfield and in defence. They've got some really well-known names at centre-back. Kabak, absolute gun in the air. Obviously, it doesn't look like Liverpool's going to be keeping him on a permanent, but he's still a very good young defender. They've also got Chala Sionchu from Leicester, and they've also got Mere Demiral from Juventus. They play 4 at the back, so unfortunately one of those guys is going to miss out unless they somehow go 3 at the back. So that's going to be a really tough decision for the Turkish coach, but you can't really go wrong with those 3. They're going to be a very, very solid force, which is interesting why they've been so leaky at the back. But it's potentially they haven't quite had solidity and continuity in terms of selection. They've been mixing and matching a lot with Kabak, Demiral and Sionchu. But the man in front of them is also a very impressive player. He was part of, a bit of an infamous side in West Brom. Didn't have a great year in the Premier League, but Okay Yukuşlu, I believe is how you pronounce it, he had a very good year. He was in the top 15 for tackles and interception across the big 5 European leagues, and he was also in the top 10 for recoveries. So he had a absolute barnstormer and probably isn't getting talked about. A lot of people talking about Basuma, a lot of people talking about Ndidi in terms of the defensive side of midfield, but yeah, Yukuşlu not getting much love, where if you look at the stats, suggests he will be a vital player for Turkey in these championships. And that leads us to the final team in this group, and it is Wales. They, believe this or not, alright, this is very shocking, but they've actually picked up the most points in their last 10 competitive games out of this group. They've picked up 25 out of a possible 30. And their schedule hasn't been ridiculously easy. It's very comparable to the other 3 sides. Their defence has been impressive. Second best defence out of all the teams in this competition. Their last 10, only conceding 4. Incredible stuff. Don't have many big name defenders, so what wonders they're working. Well done to them. Incredible stuff. However, they only scored 13 in their last 10, so a lot of 1-0 victories. And this is something that might have a ceiling over them and cap their potential in this tournament, as they will be playing the likes of Italy, who have a very good defensive record, and Turkey, who have some really good defenders, not necessarily a record. But obviously Wales, famous for their semi-final run at the 2016 Euros, didn't qualify for the 2018 World Cup, so it's tough to judge them, you'd have to say. But none of their players are necessarily in the greatest of form. No one made any team of the seasons. No one killed it in a Big 5 league. But obviously their key players, basically the same as 2016. It's going to be Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey. Aaron Ramsey will be the creator out of midfield. Bale's going to be playing up top in the 9, and he's going to have to produce what we saw in glimpses with Tottenham for 6 or 7 games straight if Wales are going to go on a run here. And I think they're going to have Harry Wilson on one of the wings. He's always been an exciting player. Probably hasn't had the career quite what we were expecting maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the Liverpool product, but they've got some exciting talent, and they're definitely no one to scoff at. I think everyone's very fixed on Turkey and Italy in this group. Turkey's a dark horse, Italy is a dark horse for the title, but I don't think we're giving enough credit to Wales, and as their last 10 suggests, they should be someone that people are looking out for. In terms of predicting this one, I actually think this is the toughest group to predict, so I've got to be testing myself early. Italy are at home, and that's going to be a big factor for me. Alright, so moving on to my predictions for Group A of the Euro 2020 tournament. Italy do host all 3 of their games, and unfortunately none of the other teams have home games at all, as the other host for this group is Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. So what I'm going to do for my predictions is I'm going to go through the 6 games of this group, and that's going to give us our prediction. So we're going to start off with Turkey, Italy, the first game of the competition, and in this one, Turkey's defence isn't great. So I think Italy will definitely be scoring, and I think Italy's defence will be too good. I'm going to say 2-0 to Italy. And now that moves us on to the second game, Wales versus Switzerland. Oh, this is a tough one. Wales, very good defensively. Switzerland, pretty good offensively. I'm going to say 1-1 actually. It's a tough one to predict. That should be a good game, should be a good one. Early kick-off as well in Australia. That moves us on to match day 2, Turkey versus Wales. I think Turkey will bounce back from their loss to Italy. Wales' defence is good, so I'm going to say Turkey just with the 1-0. Italy, Switzerland. This is where I see Italy not bottling it, but slipping up a little bit and maybe getting a draw with Switzerland as opposed to a victory. So I'm going to pick a 1-1 draw here. Switzerland, a very, very solid side, and would be very happy with that result, you'd have to say. And then I reckon they bounce back with a 2-0 victory over Wales. And then Switzerland, Turkey. This will be to decide second place, you'd have to imagine, in the third week of the game. Third week of the tournament, sorry. Switzerland, Turkey. I'm going to say Turkey too good. I'm going to predict 2-1 to Turkey. So that will have us with our Group A prediction. So looking at the table based off my 6 predictions there, I'm going with Italy 7 points, Turkey 6, Switzerland 2 and Wales 1. Look, Switzerland and Wales have been hard done by here. They have landed a pretty tough draw because in a lot of groups they could easily be going through as the second place team. Switzerland are going to be hard. It's going to be hard for them to make it through to the round of 16 with 2 points. Let's be real, as 4 of the 6 third place teams do make it through. But we'll talk about more of that in my knockout predictions. So I think what I'm going to do with this podcast, because we have talked about Group A for about 15 minutes, what I might do is I might do an episode per group. So 6 episodes, 1 for Group A, 1 for Group B, 1 for Group C, 1 for Group D, 1 for Group E, 1 for Group F, obviously. And then I might bring it home with a knockout predictions, and I might make some player predictions in that 7th one as well. So they're going to be shorter podcasts, likely going to be only 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 30, some of them. But I don't want, a 4-hour podcast because I just don't think that's that digestible. So thanks for tuning into Group A. Stick around for Group B. I'm sure as you're listening, they're going to be going up pretty rapid fire, if not like 2 at a time sort of thing. So make sure you follow the pages so you're notified when a new one comes out. And yeah, cheers, really appreciate that. Cheers, go. Hopefully my predictions are right. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments and my Instagram, all that good stuff, and we'll catch you for Group B. Cheers.